Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today. This video is jam-packed with 5 thrift flips, all with a shabby cottage look to them, very high-end, things that you would be happy to gift to someone, and I think that they would be thrilled to get. Hopefully this will give you some inspiration. You'll look through your stash and maybe think of some things that you could make for some people. So sit back and enjoy. It has like a chandelier in it, and it's actually cut out of the wood. It has like an inlay to it, so it has texture. And I'm sure everyone was thinking, well, what can you do with this? And I'm going to show you what you can do with stuff like this. So don't pass it up. I am taking some chalk paint called Pine Cone by Fusion, and I don't have much left in the jar, and I'm mixing salt wash, which is a texture additive. And the reason I'm doing that is I am going to be putting it over the inlay portion of this. I'm not trying to completely cover it up. I'm just trying to fill it in a little bit and disguise it. You're actually not going to see this in the end, but I didn't want to take the chance of any of this dark color showing through. I'm mainly concentrating this mixture of the chalk paint and the salt wash all the way around the edges. And I'm going to do it mainly on the edges with a dabbing motion. I want texture. And I'm going to take the leftover and I'm going to go ahead and fill in most of the inside just because I have extra, and it'll also disguise that. So now what I'm doing is I have some salt wash in a bowl, and I'm going to take some of my chalk paint, and this is Buttercream by Paint Couture. It's a really pretty gorgeous color. It's a little off-white. So I'm going to be taking this. You're really only going to be able to see the sides, a tiny bit of the edges on this. So I really only care about that. I'm not trying to cover the the pine cone completely. I want a little bit to show through. This is going to have kind of a vintage look to it. And I really want the texture, so that's why I'm pouncing. And I'm going to make sure I do the sides of this wood blank also. And you know, I mainly am doing this to show you what you can do with a lot of these wood blanks and these things. Old canvases. As a matter of fact, I stopped this video. The reason it's going out as late as it is I got an alert on my phone that my favorite thrift store was having 90% off. So I stopped and just left to go check it out. So anyway, I'm making sure that I'm doing the sides. And that's mainly all you're going to see. You're really not going to see very much of anything on top. Now, I make sure I get that part, and I'm just stippling. And this is going to be the final look. I'm not going to fill in all of that brown because we're going for a... And I'm not doing the back on this because it's in a brown, kind of a woods tone. So there's really no reason to waste product on that. But I end up going over all of the middle. You can see all the texture in there. It says really would not be usable. You could fill it in, possibly. And I have another one of these. So actually, I think I have 2 more. I may do that. Now, I'm filling in the middle only because I had extra paint. So now what I'm doing is I have some drop cloth. And I am trying to figure out how much of a piece that I need to cover over the middle of that wood blank. And I'm going to be tearing it to fit this transfer. And this is from the Rose Botanical. And this is basically 1 full page of it. And I'm going to actually use the whole page as is. I've torn out my piece of drop cloth, and I'm taking about an inch of this sheet, and I'm going to put it down, and then I'm going to take the rest of it off. And I do that so that you're not trying to place a giant sticker down and have part of it go down when you don't want it to. And then basically I'm just going to rub on it until it comes off. I will tell you that you can spray like a spray matte clear on your drop cloth, and it'll actually go down a lot faster than if you just put it directly on the drop cloth. It does go down on drop cloth pretty easily, but the way transfers work is the slicker your surface, the easier they go down. So I just basically took a spray sealer, a matte sealer, and just sprayed it one time. You could even use like a good hairspray or something and let it dry completely. And what that'll do is that'll make it a slicker surface, and it'll actually help your transfer go down. So you just keep rubbing on it till it comes off, and look how beautiful that looks on drop cloth. Isn't that gorgeous? Now what I'm doing is I'm taking Vintage Photo by Ranger, and this is a water-based product. That's why I like to use it. And I'm going to go just around the edges a little bit, just to vintage them up a little bit. And this product can be diluted, and I don't actually have that much on there. And I'm going to do that all over, and then I'm going to take a wet wipe, and I'm going to kind of wipe the edges, and then I'm going to take a little of what the extra that I have on it and go across the top of it, just in different spots. Now I'm taking my blank that we did, and I am taking just some Fusion aging wax that's left on my brush. I'm actually not even loading it up. And I'm just going to go around the edges, everywhere that you're going to see, just to vintage this up a little bit. We want a vintage look to this when we're done. And I'm really not even loading it. I'm just taking what I have left over on my brush. And all I'm doing is I'm taking that same brush that just has a tiny bit of wax on it, and I dipped it in some clear wax. So I'm going to go over my entire transfer. That'll seal in my transfer and also give it a little bit of vintage look. And now I have some thumbtacks. I think I bought these on Amazon. And I am just going to take my piece that we did, and I'm going to just adhere it to the board with these thumbtacks. No glue, no anything, just the thumbtacks. And I'm going to try and space them evenly all around, just to, to decorate it. And that's pretty much it, guys. This is Cheshire. It is an absolutely gorgeous green color. Oh my gosh, guys. So I'm putting equal parts powder with equal parts water and letting it set. I think that's like a half a cup. Maybe it's a quarter of a cup. I don't know. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and mix that up and let it sit for a little while. And I'm telling you, I love this color. So, yeah. So far, I haven't been disappointed with any of them. And like I said, I haven't used the 3 other ones, but I'm going to very soon. I have a feeling they're going to be just as great. So now I'm painting. This is an antique sewing box drawer that I got off of Facebook Marketplace. And I'm going to put one coat on, and I'm going to go ahead and use my heat gun to get the crackling. And love, love, love it. Look at that. Gorgeous crackling. Chippy, wonderful crackling. And I'm going to make sure I go over it with a second coat. And we're going to be using our new paint inlay. Some of those gorgeous roses. And this is Spring Melody. I'm going to be cutting out some of these roses to use on this. And this is what I've decided I'm going to put on there. It really goes really well with this color. And the way you do an inlay is you put some paint down. You want to have enough, but not too much. And I'm spraying the paint side of the inlay, and I'm going to lay it down in the wet paint. And it's a little big, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't want perfect on this because we want this to look like an antique. And I'm going to go ahead and spray the paint side and then lay it down. The wonderful thing about inlays, guys, is they look like they are hand painted on when you're done. I mean, every single time I put something in my booth that has an inlay on it, it sells within days. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pat it dry. I spray the outside of the paper too, and then I pat it to make sure there's not too much water on there. And I don't always cut off the excess part of the inlay if it's too big, because you can reuse these inlays up to 3 times. Keep in mind what happens is whatever paint that I lay it in, it will transfer to the next project. Of course, you can use them with a clear coat, and then that won't happen. I actually love when it does that. I love the chippy, different paint look, and I can tell you people like it too, because anytime I do something with that, they snatch it up. So again, you put it down, and you can already see my milk paint starting to chip a little bit more. And this project turns out exactly the way I want it, but it doesn't turn out perfect, and that's because we're using milk paint and I have not let it dry all the way. And the other thing is that every single time you spray milk paint with water, you're reactivating it if it is not already sealed, and that is going to make the paint chip more. So the thing about using an inlay with milk paint is that you're playing a dangerous game if you want it to be perfect, because it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be chippy and old and look like a very old piece, and that is why I'm using it with this inlay, because if you want that old chippy antique effect, this is it. So I've used some pieces of this gorgeous trim that goes with it, and I'm putting those on. I'm adding it to the front portion where I couldn't put a bigger rose, and I think it is a wonderful little touch. They always give you so many pieces in these inlays, and I'm going to spray that on top a little bit after I've sprayed the bottom. Take off the excess water. Now here, guys, I am impatient because I'm doing this video and I'm drying, and I do this all the time, but think again, guys, we're using milk paint. When you put your heat to it, it causes it to chip more. So it is going to cause these inlays to chip more than they normally would if you just use it on milk paint or clay paint or top coat. So anyway, sorry about my big head getting in the way there. But anyway, you spray your inlay when it's dry and let it sit for a minute, and then you peel off the inlay, and that's what you get. So there we go, and that is what it looks like when you peel it off. And it is peeling off some of the paint too, but that's fine because I want that. And I'm taking some of my paint and going over all around the edges, because you will get this little line where the inlay ends, and that gets rid of it. And then I spray the whole thing with the clear coat and let it dry. After that dries, I take my Fusion aging wax and I go over it. And the reason I sprayed it first is to keep it from chipping, but also to not change the color of the paint too much with my aging wax, but I do want it to look old. So I go over the whole thing with the aging wax. If not, you put a clear coat of some sort down. And if you don't want your paint color to change drastically when you use an aging wax, you want to clear coat it first, and that's what I did. And then I'm going to wipe it all out, and of course that is going to get in all those little beautiful cracks. And now I'm kind of sanding the edges where I want it to look a little bit more worn on the edges, so it all kind of looks really antique. This is an antique drawer, so anyway, I am taking some foam pieces that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm kind of piecing them together in here. And I have a bunch of different flowers, all different kinds that are kind of pink and white. Some roses, some not. Some different types of things to put in there. And the way that I do any kind of floral is I just try and put whatever I put on one side, I put on the other side. Whatever I put, in one section, I try and add to the other section. I just try and balance it out. I try to add a little bit taller area in the middle. I want this to be kind of a low centerpiece. I make these all the time in my booth, and of course I have to price them to reflect the florals I put in them. Thrifted this little box. It's just, you see these all over the place. I think it's probably a Hobby Lobby piece, but I love remaking little boxes and things like this. To me, that they turn into something really special. And I am going over this whole thing with Fusion's raw silk. I did not prime it or do anything. Fusion, again, has a primer in it, and even though this is a very dark color, I have used Fusion a lot of times and have not had any issues with bleed through, and I think it's because it does have that primer in it, and I had no issues with the bleed through on this. So I'm actually going to go over this whole thing, just the outside, with 2 coats, and I'm not even taking off any of the hardware. I'm just painting right over it. I want this to have an old painted look of something that somebody's had and decorated, and you know, just like a little hand painted look to it. And it really does cover in just 2 coats. After it's completely dry, I go ahead and I am looking through the IOD Rose Botanical. It's absolutely gorgeous. It has all different kinds of these kind of vintage looking roses. So I'm going to be taking some of these smaller pinkish roses from this transfer book and putting them on this, and it really honestly is not as hard as it looks. To do a curved surface, you just really have to like cut little portions anywhere it's curving, so that the transfer will bend to and flex to the piece. And the way a transfer works, you just take the backing off and you take the transfer stick like you see me here, and you rub on it and it will come off. And it's really actually extremely easy to do. I mean, it's a little bit more difficult than a flat surface, but it's not as challenging as you might think. And because this is Fusion paint that has a built-in top coat, I didn't have to do anything to it. I didn't have to put a sealer on it. I just had to wait for it to dry. And I find that transfers come off very, very easily on with Fusion paint. So I'm going to basically just go through and find little pieces, and wherever this has an opening, like you see there, I will just take my X-Acto knife and cut through that line. First I cover it with the transfer, and then I just basically cut it after, and it will split it right where it needs to split. And I'm just putting them wherever I think they will look good, and I'm layering some pieces where I think they need to be layered. I'm cutting apart pieces that need to be cut apart. And that's pretty much how you do it on a piece like this. And I love how they look when you do this. It just gives it almost like a hand-painted little jewel box look. So in the Rose Botanical, they have a lot of wording that comes with it, the beautiful wording. And I'm just taking just one portion of it and putting it in the front, in the middle, just to kind of add some interest to it. And now I'm going to go over the whole thing with my Extreme Guard Semi-Gloss by Country-Cottage. You do need to seal in your pieces whenever you do a transfer. The Fusion paint by itself does not need to be sealed because it has a sealer in it, but once you put the transfer on it, you should really seal it in especially if it's a piece that you're going to use like this, if you're going to open and close it, or you may have to wipe it off or anything like that. Before you seal it though, you want to make sure you burnish it, and that's just taking that top piece of plastic and making sure all the transfers are down. And now what I'm doing is I am just taking Fusion wax, and this is just the espresso, and I'm going over the whole thing. And I could have just waxed the piece and not added the Extreme Guard top coat, but again, I'm just making sure on a piece that's going to be used, I usually make sure that I seal it really well so it'll last and it'll be durable. And I'm putting the wax all over, and it will move very easily and glide off as much as possible, because as much as I want, just because it does have that sealer on it. Although the Fusion has a sealer, and I usually find that it works really well. I don't usually have to put a sealer on top of it unless I'm doing it for extra protection. So now I'm just taking a fiber cloth and I'm wiping off a great deal of this. And if I can't get it off, the amount off that I want with a cloth, then I will go in with a wet wipe and take that off. And I'm just making sure that I leave enough wax in like all little corners and in the crevices and things like that, because an older piece would naturally look that way. And again, if you don't like that look, you could definitely skip this part. But I like things to look old and vintage. And now what I'm doing, I'm taking that same Venetian gold by Country-Cottage, and I'm just going over all of the metal pieces on this. I'm just kind of with my finger. I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm just making it look like it had been on there for a while and it's been rubbed off. And I will go around the edges of this piece, around the rounded corners, and add a little bit of the gold, and that's it. And I think it turned out really beautiful. Silver tray for $5, and it is silver plate, but it's not anything fancy or worth a lot. So I'm wiping it off with some alcohol, and I'm going to clean the whole thing off. I am not going to prep this with anything because I am going to be using Fusion paint and it will stick to it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to add these little feet. I buy these on Amazon. And I am going to be using my super glue that has a quick drying spray to it. I love this stuff because it sticks really well and it's instant. And when you're doing projects, who has time to wait overnight for something to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on. I put a little of the spray on, I put it on, and then I put a little bit more spray after. Try not to get it all over my fingers. But anyway, I do that on 3. I just put 3 on the smaller trays, and it works really well. And I just do this to make it into like a little riser. I sell these little trays all the time in my booths. And on this one, I got it 90% off at the same thrift store. So my cost in these are just like nothing. So I don't know, what was that, 50 cents or something? So anyway, I'm going to be using Fusion Picket Fence again. It is a very, very, just a perfect white color if you're looking for that. And like I said, I didn't even prep this at all. I've used Fusion on things like this before, and it sticks. I don't know whether you realize it, but it has that built-in primer and top coat, and it sticks. If you get it on your hands, it takes a minute to get it off. So after I've done 2 coats and let that dry, I'm going to be using a transfer by IOD called Rose Botanical. I absolutely love this, guys. It has so many roses in it, and kind of those, old-fashioned looking roses. So we are going to go ahead and cut out a few of these. For sure, that one right there. At first I was just going to put the one, and then I thought, no, I actually want to fill up the whole middle with roses. So I'm going to kind of cut out the ones I want. I'm not sure how I'm going to place them in there, but I do know I'm going to put all of those in there, and they're going to overlap each other a little bit. So what I do is I take my fingernail and I kind of press it in there just to get the shape of what I need to cut out and where I want it. And one thing that I will tell you is that whenever I'm going to do a transfer, most of the time I love using Fusion paint to put the transfer down because of the built-in top coat. I just have one step. I just put the paint down, and then I wait for it to dry, and my chances of it not coming off or pulling up the paint are very slim because they work extremely well on the Fusion paint. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just basically all you do on a transfer is you rub it with the stick that comes with it, and you're just basically releasing this transfer on there, and that is it. And how beautiful is that? So now I'm going to figure out where I want this one, and I'm just going to use my fingernail. I just crease it so it makes a line. And then I just follow that line with my scissors and figure out, where I'm going to cut it. Yeah, you can't beat these transfers for a quick project. And I just go ahead and cut along wherever I do my fingernail. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to transfer that on. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. So I put that last one on, and don't be afraid to layer your transfers. To me, it's such a beautiful look, and like I will take little pieces of the little leaves and stuff and fill in some on the bottom, just like to where it's covering like the stems or something, and layer them. So now what I'm doing is I am going to be using some Paint Couture's Amber Honey Glaze. This is a wonderful color to use to vintage things up. And I'm going to go ahead and use just a fan brush to go over the whole thing one time. And I know it looks like a lot, but we're going to be wiping back a majority of this. So I'm going to go over the whole thing, and part of the reason that I use the Picket Fence, that pure white by Fusion, is that I knew that this would be darkening this up a lot, and I wanted this perfect, I don't know, beigey color. You'll see what it looks like when it's done. And I make sure I go over the back as well and just wipe that off. And now what I'm doing is I am using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard Semi-Gloss. I love this stuff. It is super, super durable, and I'm going to go over this 2 times with this. I have a vase that I bought from Hobby Lobby, and I got it on clearance, and it wasn't broken when I got it. I dropped it bringing it inside. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. I'm going to use some CA glue, and I'm going to go ahead and you know, just basically put a little, it's really just like a super glue with an accelerator. So you just put some where you need it. It does fit back together pretty good. I'm lucky about that. But there's one little piece on top that's chipped. So I'm going to probably have to just fix that a little bit. And all you do is you put it back together, and I wipe off the extra glue. And then you just spray the accelerator on there, and it dries instantly. This stuff's great. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to get out my IOD clay, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of patch that little piece. Just put a little bit on top and just kind of shove it in there. It's just a tiny little chip, but this will actually just make it disappear. And then I'm just going to put a little water in there and take my paintbrush and smooth it out and let it dry, and you will never know that I messed this up. There's a little other part that's chipped over there, but it didn't really chip anything but the paint. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to use Victorian lace, and this is by Fusion. It is a all-in-one mineral paint. It has a primer and a top coat. It's a great white. And I'm going to go over this a total of 2 times. It covers really well, but it is, darker and it's a lighter color, so it is going to take 2 coats. And I don't have to put anything on it as far as to seal it. So it's just going to be 2 coats and you're done. Let each coat dry. It goes on nice and smooth. And I will be putting a transfer on this, and that's one reason I'm using the Fusion all-in-one paint. I love using it so that I don't have to put a top coat on and seal my paint. I can just go ahead and put a transfer right on it. And I know some people do that on just chalk paint and clay paint without sealing it, but I don't know. It works for me sometimes. It really depends on the paint. But I've done it before, and it will lift my paint up if I don't have a sealer on it. And that's what's great about these Fusion paint. This paint in particular. Now, they have a new paint out that's called Alchemy. And I have actually tried it with some transfers. And so far, even though it doesn't have a top coat built in, it seems to take the transfers really well. So of course I have to get in all the little spots and go over it a couple times. Okay, so after it's completely dry, I am going to be using this gorgeous Saint Germain. And I'm kind of flipping through it, deciding what I want to use. Do I want to use just a smaller portion of it? First, I think I'm going to use these right here because I thought it would fit really well on there because I want to have it front and back. I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but this whole look with these kind of, I guess, a little faded type floral is so popular on vases now. It's really, really popular. So anyway, I decide I think I'm going to do those 2, and then I change my mind and I find another one I think I might use better. I have to cut it because the whole thing isn't going to fit on there, and that's what's great about transfers. You can always cut them apart the way you want them. I'm going to cut out the whole piece and then kind of decide how much of it I'll be able to use and where I'm going to have to cut it. Because obviously if I'm going to put 2 pieces on there, I have to decide what's going to fit. And so I decide I'm going to go ahead. There's 2 pieces identical in this book. But I'm not going to be able to use all of each piece. I'm going to have to kind of cut it. And of course you save those pieces and then just trim it and use it somewhere else. And that's what I'm going to use for this. See, isn't that gorgeous? Anyway, I know it seems like it would be hard to do it on a rounded surface, but it's not as hard as you think. I always make like little cuts in the piece, or if I have to, I like cut it in half or something, and I put half of it on and then I match the other half. It's really not that hard to do. So on a transfer, you take your backing sheet off, and I'm gonna hover over it and then commit. And I like to start in the middle. I know a lot of people will start on the end and go across. I don't know why. I like to just kind of like go from the middle and then out, and you see me cutting around it just so that it will fold around this rounded piece. And I push down anywhere I need to. I'll continue to cut, and if something doesn't transfer on well, I can always take that piece and go back and add it to that. But for the most part, it goes on really easy. It doesn't seem like it would, but it's not as hard as you think. And of course, it goes on this Fusion paint extremely well. Super easy to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of rubbing. And if you pull up and you don't see some of it transferred, then you just lay it back down and put it back on, and that's how you do it. Now I'm going to do the other side, and I'm basically doing the mirror image of it, and I've cut it out, and I'm going to try and put it strategically in the same place. And of course I've kind of trimmed around it a little bit, and I'm just going to go through the same process as I did before and put that on. You know, it takes a little bit of work on a rounded piece like this, but it is not as hard as it looks, I promise. I think I make it look harder than it is, but it's really not. Off, there's a little piece that didn't get on there, so all I'm going to do is just match it up again and go back over it, and it will just transfer right on there. So now that I've got those pieces on there, I'm going to want to burnish them, which is basically you take that carrier sheet, and I like to do it shiny side down, and I just rub it and just kind of burnish everything in. And we're going to be doing more to this, but I want you to look at this just the way it is. It's absolutely gorgeous, just the way that it is. You wouldn't have to do anything to this. But, you know, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel if I didn't just, you know, do more. If I just didn't do more everything. But it's beautiful, beautiful, just the way it is. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and put several coats of a matte finish top coat by Fusion on there. It's their Extreme Guard. And the reason I'm going to put 2 coats of a top coat on there is that we are going to be using a crackle medium. And if you put the crackle medium directly on the transfer, it will actually crack, or could crack. Sometimes it doesn't. It could crack your transfer. So if you put the top coat on, and I like to put a couple coats and let it dry completely, then you won't have that happen. So it does take a little bit to do all this, but I think you'll like the finish. It's different. So after I let that dry completely, it's like I said, it's absolutely beautiful just the way it is. But I am going to be taking Pent Art's Fine Line Crackle Medium, and I'm going to be putting it all over it. And it goes on, it looks like Elmer's glue. It kind of has the texture of glue too. And it goes on white like this, and then you'll know that it's dry when it becomes clear. You don't want to put it on, you know, too heavy. You want to, you know, put it on pretty even. And after it's completely dry, it'll be transparent. And now I'm putting step 2 on. And step 2 has a little bit of a tint to it. You don't want to put too much on, and you don't want it dripping. You don't want to have the drips later. You don't have to put a ton on. But anyway, I go over the whole thing with step 2. And I let that dry. And with both step 1 and 2, I do dry them with my heat gun. I just don't get up super close or stay in one spot. And it does, crackle just fine with that. It dries just fine. And now I am using Pentart's aging wax. And this is, you have to use something that is not water-based. And this works extremely well with it. But you can use like just your regular wax, but you do not use anything that's water-based, because if you do, and trust me, I know, it will gunk it up. It'll just be all gummy and nasty and awful. But you do have to put something on the cracks to even notice them. They are so fine that you really can't see them until you put this on. So you just go over it, and then I wipe it back pretty quick. The one thing I have to be careful of, I tend to wipe too much, and then I wipe off what I put on. But it goes into all these cracks, and this is going to look like fine porcelain. This crackle medium is very shiny, and I think it's meant to give that like porcelain kind of look to it. Anyway, that's it, guys. I hope you like it. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that, got some inspiration, get out some of your stash, think about some things that possibly you could make for people that they would love to have. If you happen to need any supplies, any IOD, Fusion, Paint Couture, Pent Art, Sweet Pickins Milk Paint, JRV, Roycycle Papers, or Decoupage Papers, you can get that on my website, rehatchdesigns.com. We're running a special. It's a Black Friday special that we're continuing. Use the code BLACK25 and you get 10% off your whole order, and you still get free shipping and flat rate shipping as well as low prices. So I will see you guys again soon on Wednesday. Take care. Bye-bye.